welcome back to Ad America. Woo! I know, Happy New Year for all of you. I hope that you're building something resolution for this year. I know. So we are welcoming you to Ad America. My name is Aninda, one of the guests here in Ad America, and we hope you are doing well and staying safe. Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. Well, I know this is the first event for this year. Are you excited for today? Ooh, I love the excitement. And I know we are building a resolution for this year. Maybe some of you wanted to learn something new today or want to switch your career to art production. Well, this is the time because we are welcoming you to Workshop at America Art Production in the Comics Industry. But before we begin, I have a trivia for you to spice up this event tonight. So, as you know, we have Rini Sugianto. She is an Indonesian animator. And the question is, she took part in the filmmaking of all of these Hollywood movies, except is it A. Moana, B. The Avengers, C. Iron Man 3, or the Hunger Games Catching Fire? So if you know her projects, make sure you type in your answer on our social media because in the end of the event, we'll do a live shout out for those of you who can guess the answer correctly. Other than that, feel free to take a selfie or take a photo of your fun activity today on and also tag on our Instagram account. Without further ado, I'll pass the floor to our facilitator. They are Rizky Rinaldi Mosmart, a managing editor of Bumi Langit Entertainment, and also Dodi Eka, a comic artist. Please welcome Rizky and Dodi.
Hello, thank you everybody for inviting us, and we're very honored to be the opening session for at America event for this year, and hopefully we have lots more session regarding creative industry in Indonesia. So, as mentioned before, my name is Rizky Rinaldi Mosmart. I'm a managing editor of Bumi Langit Comics, and I'm here with my friend Dodi Eka. So we are two of few artists in Bumi Langit Comics, and Bumi Langit Comics is a company under Bumi Langit Entertainment, which I hope everybody already know who already watched Sri Asih. Thank you very much for your support, and Mas Dodi, also the comic artist behind Sri Asih movie adaptation. So give an applause for Mas Dodi.
Thank
Because
you.
the
Thank you
part
very
two
much.
of Sri Asih comic adaptation from the movie will be released within a few days. So and Mas Dodi will demo the how to draw and how to produce the comics today, first time with a new page that no one have ever been seen before. So this is the first uh, for you guys in at America to watch the page and how the page will be developed, will be drawn, and you can further you can read the page in the uh, movie comic book that will be coming next week. Okay, so we let's start today's session, and yeah, it's big, and maybe in the Zoom. Oh yeah, I haven't say hi for those who participate in the Zoom or YouTube. Welcome to our session, Bumi Langit with At America. And yeah, we want to talk about art production in comic industry because talking about comic industry, of course, we have a lot of sharing experience between Indonesia and America, even back then in the 1960s. Because Bumi Langit as a company maybe started in the early 2000s, but as the characters, as the comic IP, intellectual property, it was started way back in the 1950s. So when US comic industry has its heydays with the golden age of US comics, Indonesia also have the golden age of their comics, of our own comics. And back then we can say that we are on par. So before we continue talk about what kind of relation that Indonesian comic industry have with US comic industry? Now you see this QR code on your screen. Please, fellows, you can scan the QR codes and you'll get some special items from At America, which is the certificate of involvement, certificate of participation of this event tonight. Okay, last chance, last chance. Maybe a few guys from Bumi Langit would like to add more bonus. Okay, so this is the US comic in the 60s. Of course, there's a few samples of it. So all the characters that we love, Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers. Sorry, I only like showing examples from Marvel, but we also, of course, have DC, Batman, Superman, and all the comic characters are already like quite prominent in the industry back then in the 60s. But a few that knowns that Indonesian also have a lot of popular comic books in the 60s, and we can see uh, some of our old maestro in Indonesian comics also take some lessons, take some inspiration from US comics. Of course, the access to US comic is not as easy as today. Uh, Maybe they got it like 5 years late, or maybe 10 years late before finally can hold Spider-Man comic books, or maybe only like see it from newspaper and everything. But Pak Hasmi, as the creator of Gundala, already create Gundala in 1969. So back then, the art style you can see the similarities because that's what inspired him. Because US comic also inspire a lot of Indonesian comic artists uh, on making superhero. And Pak Hasmi is one of the first generation of comic artists that popularized superhero genre in Indonesia. So uh, let's say our thank you and pray for almarhum Pak Hasmi because his legacy now is continued with us, Bumi Langit. We are very honored to be continuing his legacy through new comic books and of course who who's here that already watched Gundala? Can I see some hands? Oh, okay, thank you. Almost 90% of the audience in the studio already watched Gundala. So that's amazing, guys. Thank you. Yeah, so we can see that the influence of American comics. What about now? Uh, Before previously in the previous slide, I show Marvel. Now I show you Batman enemies. The reason I'm showing you this is because this is our learning process in Bumi Langit. We want to learn from industry leader how Batman since the 1930s expand the universe and expand the characters, expand the stories. 70 years, 80 years until now, almost 100 years, a legacy of a character keep developing. Now we want to see what can we learn about international comic publisher, US comic publisher developing their character. So we try to categorize. Okay, Batman have Deadshot, have Hugo Strange, have Hush, Killer Croc, of course also Joker, and now got Batman Who Laughs. All is like part of this big mythology that developed by DC Comics. So we try to learn about from that in how we develop our characters further. For example, how we learn from US comics is we try to map out, oh, okay, from all the DC comics villains, especially the Batman villains that we can read in the comics, actually we can categorize them into smaller circle, smaller category. Like there are a villain who a street level guy. There are groups like the Suicide Squad, or they have like military terrorists, assassins, or they have evil organization, crime lord, business empire, or they are a failed experiment, a mutation, So there are specific archetype on developing characters. Why we take villains as the root? Actually, we also learn about the protagonist also. But I think showing villains as an example to learn is like more interesting because Batman will fight all of this, but the villains only fight Batman, maybe with some sidekicks and Justice League and someone. But the villain we always like bigger. They have more people. They have more groups. They have more motivation to defeat Batman because they all have different motivation, individual. So from this, we try to learn. Okay, if Bumi Langit want to develop a villain, a series of villain, how we can learn from US comics industry, how we can learn from the market leader. So we try to categorize our own villain, the villain that Pak Hasmi create. Like we have Tulos. This one is created by Pak Wit NS, the creator of Godam. Oh, we have Dr. Setan, also villain created by Pak Wit NS. Dr. Setan transformed into Roh Setan in the Sri Asih movie that we just watched together a few months ago, played by Reza Radian. We have Kiwi Lawuk, the original villain of Gundala, one of the strongest character. We put all those characters into the category like we learn from US comics. So that's how we try to learn from the industry that much bigger than Indonesian comic industry. So we can like grow our own comic industry, and we can create this whole sets of Bumi Langit own comic titles. So if we see here, maybe a few of you already seen this slide many times before because we always bring up this slide as this is our showcase of comic character based branding. So not just a story, not just art, but as a brand, we have like the warrior on the top row. We have Sibuta dari Gua Hantu, we have Mandala, Tiger Dance, and then we have the teams of Bumi Langit Heroes. We have Patriot, Jaga Bumi, and Patriot X. On we have the individual heroes on the middle row that we cater the development for female readers. So we have Mazda, Sri Asih. If you see that Sri Asih have two brands because we have multiple Sri Asih actually. So other than the movie Sri Asih, we have the original Sri Asih, Nani Wijaya. We have our first developed new Sri Asih, which is Ganis, Rengganis. And then we have teenage Sri Asih in form of Alana, the webtoon series from Sri Asih Celestial Goddess. And then to the fourth row, we have Aquanus, Gundala, Godam, and then another Gundala because we have Gundala Son of Lightning, the younger Gundala, and we have Gundala the movie version, which played by Abimana, and we also have Patriot Cilik. We have kids line, so we want to like introduce the character of Bumi Langit even as early as 3 years old. So we developed all this line. Patriot Cilik has its own animation series. We have one season, and it was aired in free-to-air TV, terrestrial TV in Indonesia, Antv. Gundala and Friends is animated series in 3D that we are developing right now. Jagoan Receh is a short comic that we publish through social media. And then Sibulan Koki Super is our second animated series for kids, also in development for season 2. And last, we have the Sparkies. The Sparkies is animal characters for Virgo and the Sparkling. So you might be able to see them soon since Virgo and the Sparklings movie will be our third movie and it will be released early this year. When I think we have to wait for the date, but just follow our social media. Okay, before I continue with my presentation of Bumi Langit Showcase, we have this blank canvas. So, Mas Dodi Eka, hello Mas Dodi,
Halo,
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Bit nervous, but I'm
Bit
good.
nervous. Mas Dodi, uh, although he said that he is a bit nervous, he is a professional comic artist and has been working with U.S. comic industry for quite a while. So
Yes.
big round of applause. Mas
Thank
Dodi
you.
have a
Thank you so much.
few Kickstarter project, I think, with U.S. comic publisher in the
Uh, a few months ago.
a few months
A
ago.
few
Yeah.
months
And now he just said something that I cannot say in public, but I will say it anyway.
ago.
He's doing something for US Comic, another series. So uh, while he's doing a project with US publisher, he's still doing Indonesian comics. So thank you very much
Anytime.
for your time and skills. Mas Dodi,
My pleasure.
yeah,
Exactly.
Mas Dodi's work in Bumi Langit, the first one is Sri Asih official movie adaptation comic. The first volume already released back in November, and the second volume will be released this month. So go to Bumi Langit official shop. Can I say that? Can I promote Bumi Langit official shop? Oh, no one saying no. So yes, please visit Bumi Langit official shop to get Mas Dodi's latest comic. Okay, since this is the blank canvas, Mas Dodi will draw something and we'll go back and forth between my slide of presentation and Mas Dodi's drawing. Mas Dodi will draw one page, not the whole page, but maybe one or two panels
Two
because,
panels.
of course, as a professional comic, it takes time to draw one page. Usually, how long it takes you to finish one page?
One page, maybe one day.
One day.
One day.
So, for you guys, if you want to know, what's the deadline for professional comic artists? It means one page per day, and it's only for one part of the comic production, which is your
Yes.
specialization is penciler.
Penciler.
What is a penciler?
Because it pays more
the
than the inker and the colorist.
penciler is the main artist. He draw the main comic page
Yes.
with pencil or with digital pencil, as Mas Dodi will show. He's using Adobe Photoshop, and the hardware is you can use Wacom, you can use Huion. This time we
Yes.
use Huion, and other artists, including me, also using iPad or maybe some Android tablet. So you can start anywhere. Don't
Okay.
think too much about like I have to find expensive gadget to draw digitally. No,
Yeah.
you can start
No.
even with your phone. So please, Mas Dodi,
You can start with your
paper.
paper, drawing tools, anything like pencil, pen, or anything that you like to draw. Markers. It's it's free to draw. But for making comics, penciler is the first person that uh, step forward to go to visual beside inks and the colorist. So penciler is has to translate the script into the visual. So it's the hardest part of being penciler is to understand what the script means, what the writer wants to see in the visual, and sometimes it's hard to understand because it's maybe some language is not familiar with this with the what I have to think. That's why you have to communicate with the writer what it mean, what it's about. But you don't have to read or understand the whole book to draw. At least you have to try to understand at least for one page on the script to start. Sometimes people try to like to draw thumbnails. Thumbnails is like a rough sketch. For example, I will try to make thumbnails. If this paper and you have to see what the script has have um, how many panels, maybe like 3 or 4, and you have to what panel one says, she fight or he fight, and you have to continue with panel two and panel three and so on, so on, and so on. And you have to make the approval for to the writer to see if is this what the script has to say, or wants you want me to draw. And if yes, we can continue to more detail of the sketch. Maybe it's like this. But remember, this is still a rough sketch, not the finished detail. This is a rough sketch.
So this is the second step after
Yes,
you create the thumbnails, the
thumbnails.
previous drawing that Mas Dodi sketched before. Thumbnail is like you split the page into panels as the script intended. And then second part is always start with rough sketch. So for you guys who's learning to draw, never forget that making a rough sketch, making like a guideline with circle, with a stick man, or like uh,
Yeah.
just a scribble, it's not learning to do good drawing, but it's part of the process. So even though you're already professional, you still
Yes.
have to start with the rough
Yeah.
one. You
Yes.
cannot just straight drawing into like final sketch or clean lines. Don't forget that these steps is the part of your drawing process, not just on the learning process. Because sometimes uh, young artists feel that, oh, I only do this when I was learning. When
Mm.
I'm good enough, I don't need to do the rough sketch. But actually, you can see that a pro is a pro. Even the rough sketch, you you can already saw. Oh, the rough sketch is very dynamic. That's how you can like decide whether you can continue, whether you evaluate. You have to change the angle or something. You always need a rough sketch. Okay, I think I'll let Mas Dodi continue with the drawing. Mas Dodi can draw, and I'll go back to
Okay.
this first. Please, Mas Dodi, we'll get back to you later.
Okay.
Sorry. For those who's watching the drawing, let's keep it as a surprise for you guys. And this is, I think, most of our comics that we already published. So on the top row, you can see that it's part of continuing the legacy. You can see that there's a Sibuta dari Gua Hantu with classic style because it's the original Sibuta dari Gua Hantu. So we try to publish the remaster version. We clean up all those old printout from the old edition because we don't have the original art. It's gone. It's from the 60s. We only have like the old printout from the old books, but we scan it and then we just like in the remastering process in the movie or uh, music, we clean up all what we have and then we publish it again so new generation can have access to Cibuta dari Gua Hantu, Gundala, Godam as it's originally intended by the original creator. But of course, not just remastered version, we also have the new version. Like you can see on the top right, there's a new Sibuta dari Gua Hantu. That's a new drawing with new story, adapted from the old one. So when the old one tell a story of the origin of Barda, how he became Sibuta dari Gua Hantu, the new one also tell the same story with new details, with some fill up. Maybe Pak Ganes Teha back then forget or doesn't have a chance or doesn't have the page to tell more stories. We try to create more new stories. And then we also have like we mentioned before, we have Mandala, we have Patriot. Patriot is a series of our team characters. Then we have the individual titles like Godam, Sri Asi, Gundala, and then we have another team that we already teased in the last movie of Sri Asi. We call it Jaga Bumi. Jaga Bumi is another team of Bumi Langit universe. What's the difference with Patriot? Patriot is the team that using the storyline and the world of original creation. So if you see, although it's very small, if you see the Gundala in Patriot is using the classic costume. But if you see the Godam in Jagabumi, the costume is different than the classic Godam. So the Patriot is extension of the classic series. Jagabumi is the new theme for the new universe that Bumi Langit try to create, try to expand. So we have like Marvel that they have multiverse. Even both Marvel and DC have multiverse. One have multiverse, one have extended universe. Bumi Langit also have that. Of course, in a smaller, very much smaller uh, scale. For the teenage and young and female readers, which actually the majority of Indonesian comic readers now, because mostly people now read comics in their phones through the digital platform, so-called Webtoon, Kakao Page, or Mangatune, and mostly the readers are female. So we have also female titles. We have Sri Asi Celestial Goddess that we create for female audience. We have Virgo and the Sparklings also that produce and scripted and research for female audience. And Virgo is one of our most successful IP until now because the webtoon version already like subscribed by almost 2 million readers and tens of I think hundreds of millions page view in webtoon, and not just in Indonesia but of course also internationally. So if somehow I get a new person that just now knowing Bumi Langit, I'm so glad that you're here. Please go search for us, Google us, find Bumi Langit on Instagram, on Facebook, on Webtoon. You will like stumble upon our works, either Sibuta, either Virgo, or even if you go Antv, you like turn on the TV, but not for now, because Sibulan, Koki Super is our animated series. From those animated series, we also create a book series, and the book series is quite outlier in the whole Bumi Langit production line because it's a recipe book. So it's like her superpower is he can cook and with some magical recipe and magical stuff she can cook very well, and she has like friends, cats, uh, all those animal, chicken, cow, and then who else? Yeah, I think that's it. You can find out also in YouTube. We also have Patriot Cilik. It's the younger version of our superheroes. So why we create all those titles? Because we want to go from comics into 360 IP development. So not just knowing Bumi Langit as a comic characters and then reading the comics, but you can also watch the movie, which for now is more popular than comic books, at least in Indonesia. And then you can also like take this legacy character, take this intellectual property as your lifestyle. You can wear it on your t-shirt, on your shoes. You can play the games. You can even like buy drinks or food or snacks that has Bumi Langit intellectual property. Like in the Gundala movie, we partners with Janji Jiwa to create a special edition of coffee, Gundala Coffee. And for Sri Asi, we partner with uh, Donut, Mr. Donut from Indomaret. So we even like have donuts with Sri Asi logo. I think even though it's simple, it's like a showcase that Indonesian owned intellectual property can be developed further, just like the Hollywood or the US creative culture products. So a little bit introduction about Sri Asi. We have three Sri Asi, but actually there's another Sri Asi, which is the movie version, the Pevita Pierce with Alana. This one on the right is Alana, but the webtoon version. She's a high schooler. So the series Triasi Celestial Goddess is created for teenager, for high school, junior high readers. And then we have Rengganis. She's like young women in mid 20s, just starting her career as environment activist. So it's very different than Alana, which is a high schooler. And then we have the original Sriasi, which is Nani Wijaya. I think Nani Wijaya in our stories we plot her as more mature, more adult because Sri Asi is the leader of Patriot. So we have different characters, different Sri Asi, different product to cater different market. Uh, Not because we're greedy or something, but we want to like cater everybody. If like uh, young boys or young girls want to have new characters that more relate to them, they can see Alana from Celestial Goddess. If like young adult readers want to find something new in superhero genre, in comics or in movie, they can see the Triasi Rengganis. And for the older audience, even the one that maybe read the original comic from the 50s, they can still see it in Nani Wijaya. That's why we develop more than one Sriasi. So this is just a quick explanation about Sriasi. And then yeah, we have after we develop the characters, of course we have to develop the product. So we develop the products also in different market, different style. And now the anchor is the movie because the movie is more popular creative industry product. We every time we have new movies, we will try to create products around it. Like if we now pushing Spriasi, it's because Spriasi movie just been released and maybe soon we can see it on the OTT platform. Then we create a lot more Sriasi comic books, including the theme comic book. Then this is the next movie that Bumi Langit will have. So we will have Virgo and the Sparklings early this year, and then we will have Tira in Disney Hotstar as a series, also coming soon. I cannot state what date to watch. Maybe backstage I can give you a hint. Okay, let's go back to production process. Mas Dodi already said that previously there's in drawing in the art part there's a storyboard, sketch, line art, and then coloring. But before that, we have writing part. So in comic production and comic development, first we have the story. How to create the story? We start with premise or log line. Log line is one sentences that sum up your stories about the characters or the heroes. Usually the log line or the premise is the characters want to do something but he cannot do it because of this. Usually it's the dream of the characters but how he have to fight obstacles to achieve the dream. That's the premise usually. Like for the Superman. Superman is like orphan sent to Earth, try to become the protector of the Earth. But he cannot because he have villains, because he has like weakness in form of kryptonite. So premise always like that. It's a short summary of your story, and then The second part is the synopsis or the short story of the bigger story. Since this is Bumi Langit and usually most of our comic books are series, so we put episodes outline. So we already know in one season of story, let's say we have 12 episodes. Before we write the first episode, we have to know the whole 12 episode will be talking about what. So we have to create the outline. After those are clear, we have first episode introduction, for second episode uh, the introduction of the villain, third episode first battle, and then the fourth episode crisis time, got lost or something. So we have all those outline. Then we create the script because when you work in a specific steps, you can work as like a conveyor belt production process. You can pass the premise to the script writer, so the concept artist or the writer's room can work more efficiently. That's why you work in steps. After you create the scripts, of course, we also have to remember there's an editing and rewriting part because usually this is the one thing that commonly left behind. We finish with our first draft and then that's it. We go to drawing without rereading or without try to rewrite and take a step back to evaluate. So after the writing part is done, then we go to the artistic part. The artistic part has design character, storyboard, sketch, line art, coloring, and text layout. This is a comic book production, but you can also implement this to any creative production. You just change the end result. You always need to write a story, even if it's just a toys, you need to create a story telling behind it. Then you go to the production, which is this artistic side. And this is how we split the tasking in art production. In the very left is the part that we have to go through, that we have to remember that all the part must been done. We have to go each step carefully and then evaluate and then do the next step. That's the task list. But on the right side, it's depend on how many teams you have. If you're just like a team of two, a dynamic duo of writer and artist, then you split the writing process and artistic process. The writers, of course, handling the writing, the artist handling the artistic. But if you have more people, usually in the industry, we will split it more to the right. Like if we are a community, sometimes we split we have one writer, but we have two artists, the line artist and then colorist, color artist, the one that put color into the comic. Or if we have four member of teams, we have sometimes we have only the creator, like maybe Stanley. If you know, Stanley is a creator. He is not always writing the comic, but he create the character, he create the world, he create the basic story, and then he work with another writer to develop the concept into script. Then that's how you can split your team. And then same with the artistic, you have line artist and colorist and layouter. But in Bumi Langit, we can, or in another industry, bigger industry scale, you can have more people. Like in Bumi Langit, we have the creator. The creator is the legacy maestro of Indonesian comic. Let's say we are talking about Sri Asih. The creator is almarhum Pak Era Kosasi, which is no longer with us, but we can learn about his concept from his previous work. And then we have the editor's room. The editor's room will like define the guidelines. Okay, the writer can write Sri Asih into any conflict or any story, but she will have specific guidelines. She will always like use her scarf. She will like she have her power like multiply or becoming a giant or and the power will always came from Dewi Asih. You cannot change that, but you can put all kind of story, just like you see in the movie, or maybe you read Bumi Langit, others Reasi title. That's the story that never been told by Pak Kosasi. So we have the two part working together, learning from the creator, the writer and editor's room. Then for the artistic section, we have storyboard artist. Storyboard artist is the one that making rough sketch. And then we have line artist, like Mas Dodi is a line artist in Bumi Langit. But in the line artist, actually there's we can split it into two different jobs, two different tasks. First is the pencil, and second is the inker. Why we split it? Because we want to finish the comic faster. So we can just like, okay, pencil page one done, pass it to inker. Inker page one done, pass it to flat color. So assistant colorist is usually you do the flat color, and then we have colorist who do the shading. I will show you the samples of which part is which, and then layout is putting all the text bubble and all the stories so readers can read the comics. And this is the reason. So we can put the timeline like this in the production process. So we don't have to finish like waiting Mas Dodi to finish the whole 60 pages of pencil, then we have to move on. No, we can like uh, separate it into small chunks and then we create a production line. This is what US comic industry actually teach because the one that more familiar with this kind of production line is US comic. In other part of the world, like manga or manhwa, usually the production line is one main artist and a lot of assistant. But the assistant is not like doing part by part, like inking or coloring, but usually the assistant will draw backgrounds. So one drawing can be drawn separately by one main artist and his team of or her team of assistants. So this is like US comic production line style. And then let's see how the script work in comics. I think I can skip this to okay, this. We have a standard scenario format, so it's quite similar with movie scenario. So if you write comics with this kind of format, you can also put on your portfolio or on your CV that if you had a challenge to wrote a story for movie, you can also do that because it's quite similar. The the format will be separated by panels. So you describe panel one, who's the character, doing what, what's the dialogue. Then panel two, what's the story, panel three, and so on. That's the standard format. So with this format, the artist will have like more freedom to translate the script into the drawing because the panel doesn't like direct. You have to draw this on certain angle, or the panel must be this big, that big. It's all in the artist's freedom to choose which kind of panel or which kind of drawing he or she wants. And then we have panel script. Panel script is the one that usually done for Bumi Langit production because we want to make it faster. So we already like separate the panel composition. Usually the writers already separate the panel composition. We already showing that okay, this panel is like long horizontal panel. That's why we use Google's we use spreadsheet or PowerPoint to make this kind of panel because easier to move around the box. So this is the panel script format, and still we show where's the uh, story, what's the dialogue, and then even the sound effect. And then the third format is the thumbnail format. So usually this format is made by a writer that can also draw. If a writer is also an artist, usually he or she can like just do rough sketch and then show like this character is doing this, or maybe adding some dialogue on it, and then pass it to the line artist. Or if you're working alone as a comic artist, you can use this format, which actually I'm not recommending because like it's you need a lot of experience to go directly to draw without previously write down something or write down an outline. So some of professional artists, maybe in Bumi Langit, Sweta Kartika developed his production style like this. He draw because he is also an artist. Okay, this is the thumbnail, and then I will check Mas Dodi. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. From thumbnail, we continue. Okay, this is the thumbnail.
Okay, here's the thumbnail. Uh, I just want to add something for visual in comic book that usually the old days of comics they have like only square kind of panels like this.
3 by 3 panel composition.
Yeah, it's a flat panel, but uh, nowadays uh, start with I forgot maybe Todd McFarlane. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he changed the point of view of comic styles in nowadays. He tried to overlap the characters like I show you like this. It's not in the box. You can see the difference. Usually the old days you cannot draw outside the box, but now it's a bit more dynamic if we try to draw outside the box like this. An example like this. But one thing for sure is you cannot you can overlap the panels, but you cannot what is it called disturb or next panels like the one with this panel one and this panel. You cannot disturb by using the panels to
For the face.
cover the face for the next panel or cover the scene of the next panel. You still have to make what is it called a story good or understand for people who read or see. This is the rough panels I show you. And after we done this, we can start doing a bit like this.
Just like that, turning on the layer.
Ah,
It's magic.
this is the sample. After we start doing the panel lines, guidance, and a sketch, rough sketch, like we did like this, and we can start with doing like this. There you go.
So after the rough, and then we have the second cleaner. But this is
Yes.
not the final, right?
Yes, this is not the
Okay.
final.
Please show us the final process. After this one,
After this whole completed sketch and doing what the writer wants, and the final will be more like this. This is the final will be. And of course, I the rider is Eki, so I have to make approval to Eki. Well, what about like this? But sometimes you have to. Eki is not always, or editor is not always say yes. Sometimes you say, oh, the eyes too big, or the mouth too small, or the ears too thick, or whatever. Sometimes we have to make some adjustment to make a final product of art, especially for a pencil like this.
Can you ink one panel, Mas Dodi?
For one panel,
Which
okay.
one? Which one, audience? If Mas Dodi want to ink one, the Sri Asi or the Roh Satan? Sri Asi.
Okay, because this is a digital drawing, so we have to, and I using Photoshop. This is will be more like we have to turn down the opacity view a bit, and we have to add more layers. Okay, I usually draw the eyes first for art. One thing for sure that I want to say that making a good art is always uh, not always perfect. You can draw anything like for a comedy art or comedy comic. Not always the eyes is cute, the mouth is not always. One thing for sure for comic is gesture for art for me at least. Number one is gesture. No matter what style you have for the art, for the ink, I usually take the lines first before I block with black color.
Okay, while waiting, actually, I just found out that we have a few questions from the audience. So I'll check the question section. We have some questions from the maybe Zoom audience or YouTube audience. From Cynthia, butuh waktu berapa lama untuk buat satu komik? How long takes to make a comic? Usually in the production line, you need to finish every step is 1 page per day. So if we have like writing, it means 1 page of script per day, and then the storyboards, 1 page of storyboard per day, and then the pencil of also like that. So we can continue the production line like the previously shown before. So in 1 month, you can finish like 20 pages finished comic. And then if you want to publish, the US comic uh, publishing is usually 24 pages, so they can create a monthly issue because you finish 1 page per day. That's if speaking about industry, especially the US comic style, Bumi Langit printed comic books also like that. But if you're working for digital comic, for webtoon, for Kakao Page or any other scroll down digital comics, usually deadlines is depend on what's your publishing schedule is. For official title in webtoon, the publishing schedule normally is 1 episode per week. It means you have to finish one episode of your webtoon in less than 1 week. Let's say we still need to take holidays, so we take 2 days off. So 5 days are working to finish one episode. Professionally, one episode of webtoon is consists of 50 to 60 panels in full color. So if you have 5 days, you have to finish 10 panels of colored drawing, including the script writing. That's why the deadline is so tight. You have to like manage your timing if you work alone, or if you work with team, you have to manage your team. And most of the time, you have to like prepare a whole set of episodes before you publish it. So you're not just doing one episode and then publish, and then the next week you have to like running to chase the deadline to publish the second one and then the third one. Usually you have like 8 episodes ready before publish, so you have spare. If sometimes you have to like uh you got sick or you have to leave for any reason, you can keep the schedule running, weekly publishing schedule for digital comic. But go back to printed comic books, yeah, mostly 1 page per day in the hope of publishing 20 pages of comics per month. For Bumi Langit, usually our page count is 60 per book. So we try to keep it like 3 months publish, 3 month publish with that kind of uh, deadline and schedule. Sorry. And we have a question from audience in the studio. Please introduce yourself and go ask anything that you want to ask. You want me to? Oh, he want me to look at his comic book. And then, do you have specific question, or you want me
Mm.
to comment on it? Can I ask you? Okay. What's the comic book about? Okay. What's your name? Fabian. Sabian. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, Sabian. This is your comic book. How old are you? Okay, 7 years old. Okay, can you tell me a story about these 2 page for the audience? Maybe you can see this is the page that Fabian want to show. Okay. Ah, okay. This is actually quite summarized of Fabian right now on the stage because I asked him to tell the story about his comic. The first sentence is merepotkan saja ini kayak gini. But this is very interesting because the important thing in comics, people always ask, is it the story or the drawing? And I always say that the most important thing is the story. But sometimes people misunderstand that the story means like the writer part. No, because the drawings can also tell a story. So story, when we talk about story, it's not just about the script. It's not about the dialogue. It's about how the drawing can visualize something. So if we see this, okay, the first is got someone with smoky mouth. Okay, tell me something about this. What is he doing? Drunk? Oh, he's burping. Ah, merepotkan saja. And then the second panel is bikin kaget saja. So he's okay. This is a good visual storytelling because on the first panel it's a drunk man and the caption is merepotkan saja. And then the second, we have the second character that like feeling the consequence of having a drunk man around you because the new person is this the new one, right? Who's the drunk one? Which one is the drunk person? And then in this panel, it's okay. Okay, he's the one that got surprised. Okay, I'm wrong again. It's okay. Yang kaget yang mana? Eh? Okay, this one. And then what happened to this? Okay, so you're making a comic about making a comic. Okay. Apa nih? Okay. This the person is the person is making a comic because if you see this is like the round and then you have like guidelines. It means you read or you watch tutorial, yeah. Uh, you know this kind of guidelines. Where do you learn from it? YouTube or how to draw books? Yeah. See, see, guys, this is the important part that this circle and guidelines is you will learn it from any tutorial, from Google, from books, but never forget this is not learning step. This is a drawing step. So when you draw something professionally, keep doing this. Don't ever forget this. And I hope you keep drawing. I see another page. Ooh. This is the first time. Too bad I don't have comics to give you. Hey, you can pass me your address and we will send you comic books from Bumi Langit, right? Okay? Because this is the first time, like 5 years, I'm with Bumi Langit and doing this workshop and presenting. The first time someone doing a live drawing of my presentation. So if you see from here, this is the whole Bumi Langit comic roasters. Thank you very much. It's okay. Look, Mas Dudi.
Yeah?
Look, this is the
Wow.
my slide, my presentation slide. is
So
is
cool.
drawing it. Oh, nice. And then he also record the other slide presentation. Cara membuat komik. So you're learning from today. Thank you very much to
Thank
make you
you.
make my day, Sabian. And hopefully, so is this your hobby or you want to be a comic artist? Great. We have Bumi Langit, so you can work with Bumi Langit. Okay. Send us your portfolio and CV every year. So by the time you like have your own KTP, your own ID, we already have the whole archive or of your progress each year. Okay, don't forget to pass us your address, Sabian. We have a few books for you. Thank you very much. Do you have any other question? Oh, you want to draw? You want to try the iPad? No, no. Yeah, drawing is a very personal process. Yeah. Thank you, Sabian. Okay, Mas Dodi almost finished. Let's leave Mas Dodi with his inking for now. But oh, thank you. We have another question. Let's look. Pernah buat komik selain karakter fiksi? Historical comics pernah. Bikin komik pelajaran pernah. Actually, one of my first job in illustrating work is making an illustration for uh, education for school books. Actually, I remember that I get paid 2,000 to draw five apple. So I got paid like 2,000 for each drawing, each group of drawing. So if the it's like math book like five apples, two bucket, one house, and I get paid 2,000 for each drawing. So yes, I've made a comic or illustration other than fictional characters. I made a historical comic books also with Ministry of Education. Mas Dodi pernah bikin karakter selain karakter fiksi? Komik Pak Jokowi kali jangan-jangan Mas Dodi yang gambar?
One thing I made, it's called for American. It calls American Dreams. It sets in 1900, and it has a lot of
Real life.
real life character there, like Harry Houdini, uh, J.P. Morgan, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla,
Oh,
who lived in 1900. So, but it mixed with a fictional character that create a story more. Is it real or is it fiction? But it feels so real because the
mm.
character is
Oh,
real,
okay. So like historical based fiction.
historical based fiction.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's the what, plus side of
Plus side,
having like
yes,
a big comic industry. You can like create
yeah, you can
any type
create.
of story and any type of
It's your world.
yeah. Okay, and then Kak Rizky dan Kak Dodi punya komik favorit nggak? Do you have a favorite comics? Right now, my favorite comics is Sri Asih Movie Companion Volume 2, which is you can buy on Bumi Langit Tokopedia. And the one that drawing is page uh, 108, is page 48 in the new comic books. This is the page 48, the final battle in the movie. So this is my favorite. But other than my own comics, uh, one of my favorite comic book is Terlalu Standar, is very very common in comic artists in my generation. It's Slam Dunk and Akira. That two is one of the most influential. Mas Dodi, komik favoritnya apa?
My favorite comic is for local. Or
Both, okay. Each one.
local is of course Sri Asi because
Okay,
I draw Sri
I
Asi.
hope you guys really understand the subtle message behind all this us speaking about Sri Asi. We try to scream here like, please buy our comic book. Okay, Mas Dodi, continue.
Okay, I basically study about art for after high school. So I like to imagine something, or maybe like I like my imagination growing. So I like the character that have imagination of power, and I like Green Lantern
Oh,
for outside because he,
the power is manifest in many different types.
yeah, that's why
Very
he
consistent with yourself. Eh? You want to manifest things through your
manifest.
drawings.
Yes,
Mm.
you have to imagine something to release your power. That's why I like Green
Okay, thank you. Okay, for any of you that doesn't know Green Lantern, it's okay if you don't know Green Lantern as long as you know Gundala. Okay.
Lantern.
For me, Gundala is more important. Okay, next one was the ups and downs kerja di art industry. Suka dukanya kerja di art industry, Mas Dodi. Deadline tidak tidur.
Ya, sebenarnya ya,
It's okay.
Indonesian aja ya.
Iya.
Sebenarnya masalahnya bukan di deadline, tapi memanage waktu. Manage waktu untuk how to manage your own work. Time for sleep, time to work, time to eat, time to with your family. If you have a family, of course, with your kids, with your wife, or with your husband. Time to all time have to manage right. You can't draw all the time 24/7 or try to not drawing in whole day, but you can draw. The hardest part is how to start. That's the hardest part. But if you already start, time will fly.
Then what's the happy part of working in the art industry?
Heavy part is to understand what the writer wants. That's for visual.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to research, maybe for the set, for the background, for scenes, for each panel. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes you have to set back or time jump what the writer wants. That's why I have to research for what's happening, what's in there, what's the story tells. That's why that's the hardest part in research, I think, for visual.
Okay. And then what's the fun stuff of working as a comic artist? Payday.
Heyday always fun, but the most exciting one is you get the print, you get the print that the art that you draw, you got the book in your hand
You
that
create something.
you create, that you draw, and you have it in your hand. That's, oh my God, it's done. It's it's amazing. You can you have yeah, it's satisfaction different when you have read in digital maybe or see the art only in your computer, but when you have it in your the book in your hand,
Yeah. That's the
that's
cool
the most
thing.
satisfying part.
That's the cool thing about working in art industry. You can create something and then you can hold it. You can like show it
Your
around to
friend,
your friends, your people,
your
even meeting other people
family.
and saying that, hey, I made this. Because somehow there's that uniqueness of creative industry that uh, creates some kind of what admiration from other people that
Yeah,
you can create something. So hopefully some of you will join us in the art industry, even more in the Indonesian comic industry.
but it comic Indonesian comic is growing.
Yes, correct.
Maybe a bit slow, but it's still grow.
It grow and it has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the ink part is finished by Mas Dodi. I will let him take a break for a while.
Okay.
Because now it's my turn to show you the next part. We already shown the pencil part and then the ink part. Of course, as a demo, it will be a bit rough. and it will be different with what you gonna look next. I'm gonna show you the coloring process on comic production. So the first part will be like we already have the ink page. After the pencil and inking done, we the file will be sent to the color artist or the colorist team. So usually the colorist team is one flat colorist and one main colorist. You will have received the file like this. Let me share it. Okay, this is the finished page of the previously penciled page in the same page. So this is the result of the inking on the whole page. Before this, you already seen this pencil page, and then we have the ink page. The pencil was done by Mas Dodi traditionally, actually, with pencil
Paper.
and paper. So he has like one stack of original artworks of Sri Asi. And then the ink is done digitally.
By
Uh, I don't know who's the inker. No, the inker is me. Oh, okay. Let's usually since I'm an inker for this project, I try to like go a bit further with adding flat blocks like this. So every characters already got its part for color, so it will be easier for the flat artist to modify because but it's not like the job of an inker actually. But since I have multiple tasks in this project, I'm the inker, the writer, and then the editor, so I have to make like life easier for my team. That's why I create usually I while I ink because I can do this easier while I'm inking. So maybe like doing the color blocks will takes time, but if you do it before you finish the ink, for examples like let's say you haven't finished the ink, you only like ink the you only ink the the outer part of the drawings. Like this for samples, yeah. And then you can like fill the color easier. That's it. Then you go usually you go back to the details. That's how you get like easier color block part. Okay. So the next part is to do a flat color. A flat color is you put colors on the characters, on the panels, on the page, but not with shadings or lightings or any effects. Just a flat color, like if it's a skin, then you just usually uh, this part is what which is why this part is usually done by assistant or starting artist. This is one of the entry point to go to comic industry. You can become a flat color or color assistant because now your job is to create a selection. Then now we have the skin color. Okay, we continue. The one of the perks of doing digital, you can like okay to make my life easier. I will lower the opacity of the ink and then make sure that I cover everything, which is the skin part. Then the hair. Then not just the big objects part, but you also have to make sure that you separate all the color for each. Meanwhile, if you have more questions, feel free to write down your question or raise your hand if you're in the studio. Okay, this is the flat color part. So what a flat colorist need to be doing is fill the whole page with this kind of flat coloring. And then after this part is done, the next part in the comic production is to create the shading, the lighting, the effect of the coloring. In short term, the coloring finishing. So after you have this, usually it will be done by different artists, or if you also flat your own color, you can continue your job. And then if you're using a digital, you can make use of this layering system. Since this in iPad, I'm showing you the workflow or and workspace for Clip Studio Paint, but actually it's work the same way in any other software like Adobe Photoshop, like what Mas Dodi did with the inking. The important
Okay.
thing is you have brush, you have color, and then you have a layer system. In the layer system, usually you can put the blending mode on the multiply. Multiply is to put a darker tone above the flat color layer. So how it works is it will like Sorry, I think ran out of battery. Okay, so the shading or finishing of the color usually started with flat color as previously shown, and then you go on with the shadow area. One of the skill that a colorist must have is the understanding of lighting. So if you want to put your drawing uh, more depth or more dimension, you have to understand how lighting actually pretty same with how it works in photography or videography. You need to understand a good theory of lighting to be a good color artist. So you have to decide which part is the shadow. Shadow is the part that doesn't get a light from the light source. So if I decide that the light source is from here, from the front, it means this side will be having a shadow. Okay, now you have the shadows. Next, to finish up the coloring is to give the light source, the highlight. You can depend on how you prefer. You can do the highlight first and then the shadow later, or the shadow first and then the highlight later. For the highlight, if the shadow we are using a multiply blending mode. For the highlight, usually we use screen or add or glow blending mode because it will like the same color, it will provide brighter effect. Okay, after the highlight, then you can add another layer of like to give I in videography, this term is called grading. You give a certain nuance of color to the page. Usually, you can achieve this by just let's say you want to get bluish tone on the whole page, then you can just uh, draw or brush with blue color, and then you choose different. Same thing with the highlight. You want to give like, so this is the different. Let's see. I hope it's a bit too bright for you guys in the studio, but I think for the one watching on YouTube or on Zoom, you can tell the difference. So this is the ink, and then I put a color block on it, and then I do the flat color. This is the flat color, and then after the flat color, I add the shadow, the dark part of the coloring, and then I put the highlights. The highlights is the bright part of the coloring, and then I add this different tone, bluish tone, and then I add this reddish hue to create some like mysterious effects since he's in a factory if we saw the movie. So roughly this is how you produce your comic. Of course, the next step will be creating the text bubble. Text bubble usually in Bumi Langit we use Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign to put the text balloon and then to add the text. But with Clip Studio, I can show you a bit samples. So in Clip Studio, I can choose. So I add the text like this. Then I put the text balloon. I can adjust the size. Can move it like this, and then I add the balloon tail. Yeah, I think we cover the whole process of comic production. I think, okay. I think we'll go to the uh, Q&A session because we have a few more questions from the audience on Zoom and on
Okay.
YouTube. Okay, let's see. Pertama, for Mas Dodi, if I want to start to become a comic artist, what's the first thing I have to master? Apa yang harus saya kuasai pertama kali kalau mau jadi komikus?
Oh, that's for the first time you
Ya,
have
cek cek.
to practice. Yes. Yeah, it's really always keep practicing and try to get influenced by a lot of things on visual on comic books, on movies, on cartoon, everything. Because making comic books is not easy as it seems. You have to draw. Maybe you have to draw mountain. You have to see mountain what look like. You have to draw castle. You have to see what castle look like, and you can get reference from everything. You know? Maybe like castle like what Lord of the Rings castle. Maybe ice like in the North Pole. Maybe a lot of things. Try to practice on everything. What gesture, how people walk, how people sit, how people drink, how people eat, everything. You
So
have,
you have to like practice and then make good reference,
yes,
make a good
but
lesson.
remember, not always good comics has a good art.
Mm.
Sometimes maybe it's a funny art can be a good book or a book or a good story like SpongeBob maybe gitu. Or like Crayon Shin-chan, Kobo-chan. Not always perfect in anatomy, but you have a good story, but how to represent what the story on visual. Maybe something like that.
Mm.
And remember, always practicing.
Yeah, always practice and uh, referencing is not a forbidden thing. Is
Yes,
don't be scared to reference or copy, but always remember to take a lesson out of it. So if you look at a reference, don't like copy 100% without knowing what's behind your reference. If your reference is another comic artist pose or superhero pose or how to fight the character fight pose, something like that, you have to break down your reference into the basic anatomy, so you understand. Oh, that's why he draw it like that. Oh, that's why tree is drawn like that. That's why you
yeah.
draw a background. Always take a lesson out of your reference. And then next, kalau mau belajar jadi seorang komikus, apakah membutuhkan tools yang canggih? Tentu tidak.
Tidak,
Jadi,
tidak,
of course, you don't need
tidak.
anything. Drawing is uh, at the certain part of our life, we love drawing.
Yes,
We just have to remember to go back to that time. Almost like everyone on this earth have a phase that we are love drawing. So just go back to it. Find paper, find pen, pencil, anything that you can read, and then just do it. Scribble, doodle. One thing that always I remember is it's from Pak Hasmi. Pak Hasmi always said that the comicos nowadays have it easy. For him, the struggle is you can feel the struggle more back then in the 90s, in the 60s, in the 70s, because even for a paper, you don't have abundance of it because even paper is expensive back then. So Pak Hasmi, Pak Wit NS is practicing with like any paper that they can find. They go to like a printing company, they have a leftover paper or uh, some paper from poster print or from magazine print that not printed on one side. They try to find all those papers and then practice, even draw on it, even make comic on it. So uh, actually, yeah, that's quite a lesson that for us now we can get almost
and
everything
everything
easier. And
easy.
if we want to go digitally, even with phone and our index finger, we can draw. We can
Yes,
draw with phone and finger. Even though we always see that, oh, professional artists use iPad Pro, professional artists use Wacom, Huion.
it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's
Just
not
tool.
always like that because we also started with something simple.
Yes.
So yeah, actually, learn to draw is quite easy, and the hard thing is to be consistent
Yes,
in
and
your practice and in your
persistent
production persistence.
is really matter.
Because if you learn not just a practice, but hopefully you also like practice by doing. I mean, if you want to be a comic artist, don't just like learning to draw, but
Yes,
learning to make comics. Because just drawing like a single character is not enough to become a comic artist. If you want to become a comic artist, you need to understand how you tell a story visually. Like if you see, can you zoom out a bit, Mas Dodi, for this scene,
gimana?
this whole page? Nih,
Sini.
it's this is my iPad.
Ih, nothing to do
Sorry,
with
this is my
me.
iPad. I thought this is Mas Dodi. Okay, if you see this page, uh, the script may be only like mentioning that Sriasi has fallen, and then Rosetan standing in front of him, and then Rosetan open the take
Yeah.
off his mask, and then Sriasi try to attack. Then Sriasi is doing a jump kick, and then Rosetan turning into smoke, and then reappearing behind her and kick her. That's the script. But the skill, the one that deciding, okay, Sriasi is laying on the floor with this kind of angle, that's the artist skill. That's Mas Dodi Eka skill. Because other artists can just draw like maybe let me. Yeah, I think we can still see it. If you have like Sriasi laying on the floor, other artists can choose to like do this angle because this is the same script and the same story, right?
Yeah.
Other artists can choose this kind of angle, this kind of drawings. But the reason is Mas Dodi choose this angle is to show that Sriasi is closer to the reader. It means this is a panel that want to convey that readers are Sriasi. We are down. We have to face Rosetan. That's the story that the visual want to
Show.
show, want to communicate. And that's a skill you can only learn if you learn to draw comics, not just draw pin-ups or posters
Yes.
or cool posts or cool fighting characters. And then the Rosetan first uh we see him medium shot or almost full shot. And then the second time we see him opening the mask in close up. So it gets that effect of surprise. And then like want to show this is important. So it has to be close up. Other artists can just choose medium shot, showing the half body of Rosetan opening the mask. But Mas Dodi choose close up with angle from below. This is a continuation because other artists maybe like just draw him from front or from above, but this angle is from below because this is a continuation of this. The Sriasi is on the floor. That's the sequential part of comic making. And once again, this is cannot be taught. You can only like learn this if you make comics more and more every day.
By experience. The most important things about comic page is how to connect each panel into other panels, from one panel to the other panel, how to connect, how to understand, how to tell. That's not everyone can make,
Yeah.
like the cover artist maybe, or a pinup artist, or this need lot of
Yeah,
experience.
a lot of not just practice but experience. As you
Experience.
can see in this page again, we see Sri Asi with big portion in the foreground on the floor, and then we see her try to raise this one. This one is smaller and then go bigger and then go bigger. And this is the sequence. This is the continuity of this is the power of comics. You can make this kind of panel sequential from small and then bigger and then bigger. It means it's far and then closer and then closer. But in the same time, the enemy, the villain, is going into going behind Sri Asi and giving. So this is the visual sequence. This is the story sequence. The visual sequence is like the readers have this sensation of Sri Asi getting closer, but the story sequence is like Sri Asi doing something to Dr. Setan, but Roh Setan has some surprise as a consequence can be turned into smoke and then kick Sri Asi from behind. So we can understand why this one is in the front after this one is kicking. So there's a visual sequence and then there's a story sequence. That's the the richness of comic storytelling for me, and not just in one page. And then we can go like further to the next page, how we make
Yeah.
the reader want to turn the page, something like that. Okay, we are closing to the end of session. I think we still have two more questions. Ukuran font dan garis dialog untuk balon kata berapa pixel ya? Okay, this is not standard, so it could be depend on your style, depends on your preference. But for Bumi Langit, this our comic book mostly is B5, uh, B5 size. Is 17 times 245 millimeters. So we use 10 point. The 10 points for the line. So for the panel line is all 10 points. And then for the text usually is 8 point. But it will be varied depend on the font. For reference, if you want to create the text balloon and you want to decide the thickness of the line, always have a physical copy of other comic books with the same printing size on your hand. Then you can compare. Oh, okay. I think on the screen this is too thick or too thin, or the font is too big or too small. Always compare with a physical copy. And last one, seberapa besar dukungan yang diberikan pemerintah terhadap industri komik nasional? We are closing our session with a very important question. How big the government role in developing our comic industry? I don't know how big. There are some roles, there are some support. Let's say we have Indonesian Comic Association. Government always talk with us, try to find what can they support. Not concrete yet, but there are talks and they are concerned about comic industry because we are part of creative industry, and creative industry is like a very hot topic nowadays. We have a big potential. Just for example, it's like Bumi Langit Entertainment. We are nothing maybe few years back, and then we have our first movie, and then everybody like going into Gundala hype 3 years ago, and then we try to be consistent, but we got pandemic, but we still releasing the next movie, and then we will have the third movie. Imagine if we have another company like Bumi Langit. So the creative industry will be growing and growing. and hopefully the government can be supportive of that. And then the second question is, perlukah karakter komik yang diciptakan oleh komikus pemula untuk didaftarkan dan dipatenkan? Another difficult question. Uh, is it important to register your character to be patented? First, you need to understand the copyright law in Indonesia. So for copyright, actually you don't have to register it. You just have to publish it. If you publish something, e- either in social media or in your like community group or in WhatsApp group, when you show your work to other people, that work is protected by law. You don't have to register anything. If you show a comic book that you create or a story to your friend and then someone else watching it, someone else is take notes of it, or just the easier path is social media. You post on social media, it's protected. You are the creator of that work. The registration is just a layer of another protection, just in case someone else is like want to
Copy.
copy or rip off. But basically, you don't have to register. So if you don't have the money to register because it's not free, don't be afraid, because our copyright law uh, is the principle is no registration needed. The registration is just an information for the government to notice that yes, you have uh, you have this IP. But different case on trademark, on brand. If you want to brand your comic title or your theme character, like we brand Jagabumi. Jagabumi, we have to register it not as an IP but as a brand, as a merek dagang. So there's a difference. Merek dagang will be a lot more expensive. But don't be scared if you don't have the money. No need to register it yet. Just keep publishing, and you will have like law protection on it. Hopefully, you don't have trouble that need you to like pay lawyer, IP dispute, something like that. But if you then go professionally, you have enough money, then you can start to register it as an IP character, and then register your comic publishing or your title or your team name or your character name as a brand. That will give another layer of protection. I think that's it for today. We still have another session next week. So hopefully all of you guys here will be come back for next week. We have a more exciting uh, topic next week, because the comic will be moving next week. We will talk about motion comics from Sri Asih Comic. Still with me and Mas Dodi. And thank you so much for the question. Thank you so much for the support. And thank you at America for the opportunity to become the
Thank
first
you. Thank you.
session in at America. Big round of applause to at America crew. And thank you for Bumi Langit crew. And thank you for all the audience here. Let's
Thank you
one
so
more.
much.
Ah, 120 people over here. Please go visit our social media and purchase the comic, collect the comic books. Thank you. See
Hope you guys
you.
enjoy.
Okay, let's give another round of applause for Kak Rizky and Dodi. What a wonderful session tonight. Within hours, we learned a lot from sketching, coloring, and so much more. But as he said, it's not going to be the last time, because we're going to still have another session next week, which is motion comic production on 12th January, which is next Thursday. So make sure you mark your calendar and be on site, because we're going to learn more things next week. So, early in this event, we had a question of the day. The question was, Rini Sugianto took part in the filmmaking of all of these Hollywood movies, except, and the answer is A, Moana. Shout out to @flow.barus from Instagram for answering correctly. Now, maybe you have an idea that you would like to have on our stage. Feel free to submit your proposal on our website at www.adamerica.org.id. Select Create a Program and go to Collaborate with us. All different proposals will be reviewed and your event might be featured here soon. You can also check out our social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at AT America. You can get fun content, giveaways, and so much more. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Just like what we drew today, kutunggu kau di sini next week karena kita bakal belajar motion comic next week. So, see you next time. My name is Aninda and bye-bye.